Hello, today is the 4th of April, 2025, and this is our study group number 7. What I did bring is I have some bones, and I brought the sternum, manubrium, xiphoid process, and the cartilage that attaches to the ribs. So you can see it. This is obviously not a real person's body, because it's plastic and it's very flat, unlike what your body would look like. So, but let's start with what we can and feel on your own body. Start to palpate these different parts of us. Now, are you able to find your manubrium? It's a little bit higher. And then what connects at the top here?
There is clavicles.
Yes, you have your clavicle. And I will show you the clavicle that I have here. It goes here. And I think what I'll do is put on, but if you talk, it'll come to you. That's fine. We'll leave it like that. It's hard to do it backwards to yourself. But I think this is it. But you get the idea if you follow your own clavicle. What is the end of the clavicle called?
I guess it's called a clavicular notch. Oh,
And the end, and yeah, the medial end. What
mm.
is the lateral end? That's called the acromion process. So that's the top of your shoulder blade. I mean, not your blade, it's the top of your clavicle, and the shoulder sits under it. So you can feel that as you trace the bone all the way back, and you'll feel that acromion process above your shoulder. Kind of fun to have this right here. So my clavicle, if I trace it, comes from here and goes all around and out to the side. If you look at the bone itself, it has a nice curve to it. So this would be the attachment site, and this would be the acromion. So this is the joint, the sternoclavicular joint here medially, and laterally you have the acromion process. So maybe you can trace that. Mine is pretty apparent. So I can show you here. Well, I have one side that's more prominent, it has a little bit more of a bump on it. You can compare your clavicles, trace them out to the side and see if they're level or not level. Come all the way out. And then just under it is the first rib. So this is a bigger person than I am. I think a little bigger. So I feel my first rib right under my clavicle. And here's another rib. This is the first rib. See, it's really small. And so it would fit right here, but it would sit under under your shoulder muscles here, your neck muscles. And if you can go between your clavicle and go right under it, you'll feel a little space between the first rib and the clavicle. And you can trace your first rib back as far as you can go. And imagine it curving around to the back. I think it goes this way. Of course, you can't quite feel it. Well, you got the idea. You can follow your own first rib.
So is the first rib connected to the manubrium or is it a bit below it?
It's connected to the manubrium.
Okay.
But there's a curve. You can't feel the curve there. More of a curve. Let me make sure about that angle, so you're not confused. That's the first rib. Okay. Take a look at it on the web here in just a second. It's Ava coming in from Hawaii. Hi, Ava.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. That was not. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, Andrew.
How are
Hi.
you? You made it.
Yes, yes, you know, I'm teach just before, so I just finished.
Thank you for coming. We're just starting to palpate the bones of the ribs, and starting with the manubrium. So we were feeling the manubrium, and then I pulled up a picture, and we'll share that. We share that from Zoom. I did a lot of things there. Okay, a lot of things to share here from. Let's do this one first. Okay, well, here we go. The manubrium is the most superior portion of the sternum. It articulates with the first ribs at the first costal cartilage notches. Let's see if we can get a bigger picture of this. So I have this sternum and manubrium, and here you feel the manubrium, and this feels like it's a shortened cartilage, because in the picture you see it's a bigger cartilage. Oh, that's the back. Okay. All the parts. Interesting. So you see here that you have a longer cartilage than you have here. So this is actually showing the first. That doesn't look like the collarbone. Here we go. Maybe this is a better picture. So this is the first rib, and it doesn't show the collarbone. So let me see if I can get the collarbone, picture with the collarbone. you can see this. Can you see this?
It hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't changed, Sarah. Yeah.
You don't see the screen?
Well,
No,
we
the
see.
image is the same.
What is the
Yeah.
picture that you see?
It's the one you pulled up, the BMC ribs, it says.
Oh. Okay. We'll go to that. So you see it's almost overlapping the collarbone and the first rib is coming here. So the collarbone is above, attaches higher. And then you feel this tiny space, which you feel follow through from the cartilage to the first rib, really under the clavicle. And here is the clavicle. This is the acromion process where the shoulder is underneath it. So we were tracing this all the way out. You can see this. Clavicle kind of curves around, and then the first rib is under it. Then the second rib comes in. So I'll say this is the first rib. This is the second rib. So feel your second rib, which is maybe a little hard to find. And then go down. See if you can find your third rib. See if you can find the joint. There's a little bump where it changes the angle. The cartilage meets, it changes the angle there. And see if you can fold from that joint. You can keep tracing all the way down. Find each rib. See if you can find the angle there that we're talking about, where the cartilage meets the bone. And see if you can fold there. Do each rib, fold there. I would say do one side at a time. Starting where you want to start. And then see if you can fold in. And the folding is lateral. It's not head to tail. It's side to side. It's bending out. That's better. So you can actually bring your rib cage around and open and around and open. Going down to the next rib, around and open. Sabrina, I would just bring your hands more laterally. It looks like you're right on the manubrium. We don't want to necessarily be on the manubrium. You're going to feel the cartilage is lateral to the manubrium. And the little bump is where the joint is. Here, where the cartilage ends, and then the bone comes in, it changes direction. See, I can see that better. So you're going to try to swing your rib bone around your cartilage. Okay. And keep going down. Tell me what happens next. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ribs. And here's your 7th rib coming in to the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it starts to bifurcate here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See if you can feel this bone. So you get down to the bottom and you see if you can feel this bridge. So Eva, tell me where you are right now.
I am trying to find that bridge from, so I find the cipher process, and I'm going a little bit above that, and then I'm going to that place where I'm, thinking I find the bridge, so I have to go a little bit more right. I'm on my right side, and I think that's where that is.
Okay, I think it's going to be lower than that, but I could be wrong because I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, camera sometimes is difficult, but I think, my xiphoid is ending right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I mean,
You're just following it down. It really, it depends on your rib cage, but for me, it drops quite at an angle.
yeah,
you look more here, but it drops here, so you can grab your ribs, and once you hold them, you might be able to press into them.
Yeah,
and walk up to the xiphoid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That looks good. So you can play with this. You can just trace them all the way down.
But on this picture, Sarah, you were talking about the little, the little
this bridge.
Yeah, that one, and that's above the xiphoid. It doesn't end, the rib above.
It's true.
So that's why I thought I was try to. Yeah, I think I kind of have the feeling it's right here.
Okay.
Because that's the bridge already. That's like where I'm going down with the ribs. So it has to be a little bit above that.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. I'm going to pin you for a second. Yeah. So let's fold. See if you can bring your rib cage around the manubrium at that lateral junction where the cartilage meets the bone. And let your breath help you. So exhale. You try to allow the shoulders to relax. Inhale on the out when you bring out. Exhale, let your shoulder come down. Yeah, and use the ribs. Maybe put your hand on the ribs. That's it. So not so much in the front, not so much the shoulder. It's really this section of the ribs coming over. Okay, good. Let's go to the other side. Find the places where the cartilage meets the bone. And then you can play with each bone individually. Nice to breathe with it. Go all the way down. And, this is something you may not have done before. So give yourself the time to come back to it and explore. Then take the whole rib side of the ribs and open them and bring them in. And then you can do both together. Okay, so we have a good feeling now. I think at least you've begun to feel the bones and the difference of the cartilage where it meets the bone. And those are the extra joints that we don't usually think about moving around. Okay, so just a moment to look at the sternoclavicular joint up here. So we have where your collarbone comes in to the manubrium, and then just under it and behind it is the first rib. Here's a picture of the first rib. You see how small it is? And this is on the right side, so it goes here underneath.
And that one goes to the seventh cervical, yeah?
This is the first vertebrae.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
you more
the-
attaches in the back? It
yeah,
goes
in
to
the back,
T1.
yes.
It goes to T1.
Oh, okay, yes, that's right, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let me just see. Anything else we want to look at? All right, so much to get into. I'm going to put us into some of the BMC material directly, and I'm going to use, what do we need to go into? Do you have the experience of working with the diaphragm, the unified diaphragm? Okay, so I'm going to put us on a private group here just to look at some of Bonnie's material, and we'll come back to the recording. So give me a second here. Go to Zoom. Back to Zoom. Stop the share. Okay. Take the pin, remove the pin, and then I'm going to put this on pause. So we're playing with the movement of the unified diaphragm. So the upper respiratory diaphragm flattens downward, and the pelvic diaphragm rises on the inhale. And then on the exhale, the double domes of the upper diaphragm rise, and the lower diaphragm, the pelvis, recedes. So play with that embodiment. You can play with your hands as a double dome if that's easier for you. Exhale, or you can just do one dome at a time. If I had a third hand, we could use that. Going back to both hands. And now without the double dome. Okay, let's go to our xiphoid process. Maybe I'll open this. Then we can add this to the unified diaphragm. So here we have our xiphoid process. What does yours feel like? Does your xiphoid process come forward, go backward, or hang straight down? And then can you, go ahead.
No, I like to think it hangs straight down.
Okay. And right behind it, you can imagine the thoraco body. And when you take a deep breath, what happens to those two structures, or not exactly a structure, but the xiphoid process and the thoraco body? They separate. They separate. And when you inhale, when you exhale, they come together. So just take a moment. Let's visit that thoraco body, which is behind the xiphoid process.
So when you say thoraco body, are you saying like the front of the spine, like the inner vertebral bodies?
No, I'm saying that collection of cells that Bonnie feels is actually a gland.
Is that at the tip? I
It's
wasn't there
behind
yesterday.
it. Oh, you weren't there. Oh, it's behind it. Behind it. And I have a picture. Let's see. I'm not able to quite get to it. I don't think you can see that, right? You can't see that. Okay, so we're just going to come back. So the thoraco body, again, is above the diaphragm and speaks to the level above the horizon. So we're coming up in our interglandular awareness. And let me just see what I have.
Yeah, I think I'm also, I'm also not very clear what she means with the thoracic body.
She said it's in the diaphragm behind the xiphoid. It's very small. And it's kind of in the subdivision where the ribs join the sternum. Between the second segment. But I think it's a little lower down. So we did some exercise yesterday in the class where that manubrium and that joint also bends sideways. So you can bend sideways. I was just going forward and backward, but you can also go sideways and move your body from that joint between the cartilage and the rib on one side. And you can find the cartilage eating the rib on the other side, and move laterally. The xiphoid can come forward and backward. Some people have it stuck in one position because they never really moved it. Some people had trauma, and so it's stuck, could be stuck forward or stuck backwards. I've found more often it's being stuck backwards, really pulled in. Like you had some trauma and you had to hold your breath and it pulled in. So you want to feel it freely moving. And Bonnie talked about the xiphoid process being the tail on the front of the body and the coccyx being the tail on the back of the body. I just love that. So it's a similar structure to the coccyx.
And she also talked about how one moves upward and the other downward, so they're kind of separating in that way too.
That's right. That's right. She talked about the breath stroke.
Yes.
So that when you inhale,
That was all.
Yeah. Then that's the breaststroke. So we were playing with the breath and the breast. But the breaststroke,
Okay.
it's initiated between the thoracal body and the xiphoid process. And you separate those two. So when you inhale, you imagine that your thoracal body is not exactly pulling back, but the thoracal body is one way, and the xiphoid process is moving anteriorly. So it's like they're swinging apart. And when you exhale, they swing together.
That's what she talked about, that little, like,
Yeah, the power that comes when you use the thoracal body. So you have your in-breath, and you can feel the thoracal body if you mobilize that, and then exhale, the two come together. So inhale, and there is a power surge when you mobilize the thoracal body. And then exhale, when they come back together. If we did some more playing with that, and you do it in different positions. Let's see if I can do it here. Let's see if I can get the light up a little bit.
Sarah, I mean, yeah.
What?
Can you just clarify even a little bit more about the thoracal body? Like it's behind the the process, the xiphoid, but where in the diaphragm do I find it? Because you said it's the upper dome, it like goes up, but
The diaphragm is the upper dome, but this is
that's what you
I've
mean.
got to
Okay.
find the picture for you. So I'm going to go back to my Dropbox and see if I can't find all the pictures.
I can picture the diaphragm very well, but then where is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I found it. Yay, oh my God. Okay, so since I can't put this, just went away. I can't put this on the recording. I'm gonna turn off the recording, put it on pause. So we went back to the unified diaphragm, and we talked about the crura coming up, and Bonnie makes mention of the crura that are superior that come up and attach to, actually, I think it's the posterior part. I'd have to check on that, whether it's anterior or posterior part of the foramen magnum. See where you feel it. I actually, when I think about that, when I'm breathing in, and I feel like my diaphragm, the crura, rise up, and I feel like they're on the front part here. But I'd have to check that. I actually have it in my book that I wrote 2 years ago. I did a diagram of this attachment place. I talk about the pancreas. And here, if you can see this.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the anterior, I was talking about the ligaments. This is the anterior longitudinal ligament. This is the posterior longitudinal ligament. This is the ligamentum flavum. And here we have this supraspinal ligament on the back. It's actually not the back. Let's see. Well, a little, and this is the very top. This is the articular process here. The lamina, the ligamentum flavum, the lamina. So these posterior longitudinal ligaments supports the vertebrae, keeps them in place. The anterior is in the front. And so here's the front of the body. Here's the supporting ligaments to keep the vertebrae more in place. And here are the spinous processes coming back. I don't know if you can you visualize what that is? I'd have to study it for a long time. And I put it in there and I'm still looking at it. What is what? So, but in this respect, I was talking about the ligaments, the two longitudinal ligaments along your spine, and the crura interdigitate as they come up with these ligaments. The two ligaments give support to your spine. The posterior longitudinal ligament runs up the inside of the vertebral canal, attaches to the anterior. There we have the answer. Attaches to the anterior half of the foramen magnum. And that's what I was feeling. And ascends as high as the spheno-occipital synchondrosis and lateral to the hypoglossal canal. That's in your head. Those are your head markers inside your skull. The anterior, okay, so that's the posterior, attaches to the anterior part. The anterior longitudinal ligament runs up the front of the vertebral bodies to attach the anterior arch of the atlas with fibers to the occiput. The main role of this ligament is to avoid anterior separation of the vertebral bodies at the time of extension. It also helps to balance the lumbar lordosis. There's a connection between the posterior longitudinal ligament as it extends upward to become a ribbon of extracellular matrix. All right, so, and it's amazing because that spirals around the cochlea of the inner ear.
Wow.
Yeah, so in your mind's eye, you can connect your nerves of smell that run from behind the bridge of your nose to your inner ear laterally to your posterior longitudinal ligament that runs vertically upward. Once you have that upward verticality, you can loop over the top of your brain and go through the foramen magnum to the anterior longitudinal ligament and down. Then you can reverse the direction.
Okay,
right.
I think do a whole session just on that.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Sorry.
So no. I think it's fantastic. A fantastic information you offer. It's just the brain is a little bit small. My brain is a little bit small. So so it's attaching. So from the central.
Yeah. So the posterior longitudinal is inside the vertebral canal, attaches to the front half of the foramen magnum. The posterior ligament attaches to the front. So I was into the ligament there.
And it goes on the inside of the vertebral canal.
Yes. that's the anterior, goes on the inside.
Oh.
The anterior longitudinal ligament runs up the front of the vertebral bodies to attach
Okay.
to the anterior arch of the atlas.
Okay, there we go.
So
Yeah.
the atlas, which I have another model with the atlas, but I won't get into that. So imagine the atlas here, which is a circle, and these condyles are resting, pivoting. And so you have the fibers of the anterior coming up the front and attaching to the occiput, having fibers to the occiput. So here's the anterior arch of the atlas and fibers coming up. So you know that in a car accident, if somebody has whiplash, that if these ligaments are torn, that there will be no supporting the head on the neck. So that's why I bothered to spend a little time thinking about those attachments and how that comes up and attaches to the occiput, and how the posterior comes up and attaches just in front of it. So the posterior comes to the anterior half of the foramen magnum and sometimes goes as high as the sphenoid bone, where the sphenoid and the occiput join. And then some of those fibers go laterally to the ears, to the hypoglossal canal. Hypoglossal canal does not go to the ears, but the hypoglossal canal is one of the holes here. Which one is the hypoglossal canal? It's probably one of these holes. So the fibers are coming up. You're trying to keep your head on your shoulders. And you could also add your little pronephros here, and you're going to be all connected. Your pronephros will be here. There you go. Add everything together. But there's a ribbon of extracellular matrix that spirals around the cochlea of the inner ear. And that is just amazing. There's a connection between the posterior longitudinal ligament. As it extends upward, it becomes a little ribbon of extracellular matrix that spirals around the cochlea of the inner ear. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Well, you do one-on-one sessions, because I would like to explore that with you, because my right ear has so much worse hearing than my left. And I always think it's not just, like they say, like the aging thing, and you can't, it's the hair. I think it has to do with that, exactly that there's a tightness, it's a holding somewhere, and it's just like, yeah.
Did you ever get a whiplash?
Yeah. Yeah.
When was that?
A long time ago. Yeah. Long
Well,
when I was
yeah, go ahead.
and I think it's still like, yeah, I mean, I feel it always again and again on my right side.
Well, you could put your finger in your ear and you could feel like a little ribbon that wraps around the cochlea, and then lengthen that ribbon so it goes, in case it's bunched up. Take a deep breath and smell. Let the nerves of smell that run from the bridge of your nose to your inner ear laterally go to your posterior longitudinal ligament, and see if you could connect all of that. It would be quite some extracellular matrix there. That would be, you'd have to visualize that ribbon coming around your cochlea. So you can just take a trip through your head and come down and go back up. Okay. So where are we? We're looking at the unified diaphragm coming up and coming down. We played with, let's be more specific. As you breathe in, the pelvic diaphragm rises, the thoracic diaphragm lowers. As you exhale, they recede. Now I want you to feel that the diaphragm, the crus, you have the superior section of the diaphragm, those long legs reaching up, attaching, interdigitating with those ligaments, those longitudinal ligaments that I just talked about. And you can also feel the crus coming down in your back, going down, interdigitating with the muscles and the ligaments. Let's say the muscles. And going down into your coccyx, so you can feel it there. Then if you get into your thoraco body, you'll be able to stand. Bring your knee up. Do some movements with power. Power. And we did some vocalizing from the thoraco body yesterday. Boom. And we did some sounds, some strong sounds. I don't have quite that power in my voice, so you play with it, find your power, pressing through the using of the thoraco body. So if you collapse, you could play with that, and then breathing in, feel the unified diaphragm working. The thoraco body. Exhale. Breathing in. Feel your thoraco. You can feel your xiphoid process moving forward and your thoraco body moving a little bit posterior. I think it does it. They swing apart a little bit. And then feel your power.
I have a question, Sarah.
Yes.
Because when we do a sound, we actually breathe out. So there's that paradoxical breathing. It's like when the kung fu or the where you're actually pulling up the diaphragm and putting it down, yet you're breathing out. So there's an interesting, when they do that, the karate, the tennis players to get extra strength.
Yeah, the Heimlich maneuver, where you use that compression to give you the strength that you need.
So it's interesting with the diaphragm, and I've always tried to feel that it's still a mystery to me somehow, because it's paradoxical. We're breathing out, which usually does this, but yet we're actually keeping this up, and I still
at that point you're still holding the tension when you hold your breath, so it's not moving up and down. When you're holding your breath or going for the power, there's that moment where it's just taut.
Well, and my understanding in the voice work that I do, that I've been taught, the Fitzmaurice voice work, we talk about oh God, now everything leaves my box. I'm so tired. The
Abdominal wall.
Transverse. You're engaging the transverse. But my teacher.
Do you mean the transversus muscle, or are you talking about the
transversus muscles? Okay. Yes. So, but my one vocal teacher, when she was talking about singing, she was saying, because initially when I was learning it, Catherine was talking about doing this, she would do this motion like this, that the muscle would be doing this. But then the other teacher told me that if you take a straw and you do the bubbles in this, you have some water in the glass, and then you do and it makes bubbles.
Are you blowing? You're blowing into the straw, yeah.
you're blowing into the straw and you're making bubbles in the water. And then sometimes you can just make sound through a straw.
Mm-hmm.
That tension is is the vocal tension. So it's very, very subtle. It's not.
Well, it's like when you make
like,
a chant, when you're chanting, and you can chant for a long time if you control your out breath.
right, but that has to do with I would say that has to do with the capacity of the ribs going out. So, like the actors in England, like they had this thing, it was called rib reserve, where you would try and hold your ribs actually out, and then, and then that was the thing, like, but you would hold it with the muscular tension and it was called rib reserve. And this was the old style of creating vocal depth and power. But what Catherine talks about is that you go out, the ribs go out, and then they just slowly descend. So it's just a gentle, it's not, you're not gripping, but you're just letting the ribs, as the exhale happens, the ribs are just gently melting down, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like slamming closed, because that can be a habit, right? Slam close, and then you're trying to speak. But it's the practicing of letting that, as you're saying, Sarah, like if you go, oh, another breath. And so that's also a practice, right? Like you can practice, they do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, And so you can practice letting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So you can practice that ease of the descension of the ribs coming down gently. And the support, though, that you can have is very subtle in terms of, that's my understanding currently about because like my friend who's a singer, she said, you should not feel any tension when you're singing. You shouldn't be like feeling something, because that's muscular tension that you're feeling. And you want to really have all of the muscles soft, because otherwise you start to strain, and put strain on because if you have too much air coming out through the vocal cords, they're knocking together at a really fast pace. So
go ahead.
No, I just was like, this is why it's so interesting to work with the cora and the pelvic floor and what Bonnie brings and, others, that it actually comes from a whole different place than from those muscles, that there is that lift that comes through the thoracic body and through that pelvic floor, and then everything, and hopefully just be soft, as you say. That makes total sense.
We have a lot of choices here, and that's one dynamic, is to play with the ribs, the descent of the ribs. I would add all the other tissues so that the other parts were also part of that, and you would need to do your own exploration after you learn one area, working with the ribs as bones. That would be the bone system, but then you can work with muscles. You could work with the muscles around the ribs, or the muscles of the diaphragm specifically. Then you can go to the vocal diaphragm. You can work with the vocal mechanisms and the cartilage in the voice that we haven't even started talking about yet. The arytenoid cartilage, the pitches cartilage, the cricoid cartilage, how that changes the pitch. There's just a lot to play with.
Yes.
And the glands are really expressive. I mean, yesterday was the first time Bonnie really was loud with her glands. But initially, we just did a lot of sounding from the glands.
Mm.
And we did have one practitioner who was a specialist with the glands, Beth Gorin. I don't know if you heard that name.
I don't know her. Is she in vocal practice, vocal pedagogy? I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, she's now in a senior living residence, I think, of some
Okay.
sort. So, but she was one of the originals too, along with me and a couple of other people. So, yeah, so you can use your voice from all kinds of places, and you can use your voice as a healing tool where you're just humming on somebody's body parts and humming their vibration into them. So it's wonderful to hear what your experience is and to play with that. But, there's no right way. As Bonnie always says, no right way.
Right.
And as far as that, your I don't know if you call it a dilemma, but your exploration, Eva, is to how do I speak and exhale and make that seem less paradoxical. So it's not really a question. So, but there's some interface there, I would say, that's important to you to figure out. There's something about the way that brings up a question. How do I hold that?
Because I have to teach it and I get these questions of people, and it's like, okay, because and then it's like, okay, I need to go deeper in it so I can actually explain it. You know what I mean?
Are you
Especially from
teaching
people who
voice?
actually
Are you teaching
do
voice? You teach
Say it
singing?
again.
Are you
No, I
teaching?
don't teach singing, but I do teach, the wave continuum from continuum movement, and we use a lot of sounding, and that's actually what Emily did. She sounded into people and found how it stimulated the cells and moved certain things. So, yeah, in that sense, I teach sounding, not voice, and I'm not a singer, but I love sounding.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful to hear that.
But I think those mechanisms, I think everything is connected, like sounding is, you're all you're doing with singing is it's just sound on pitch. That's all. You're just adding the sense of pitch,
And breath. Breath.
yeah, and that you're practiced in, like if you're a singer, professional singer, you're able to, articulate on pitch sounds. That, but I think all of that thing of like the vocalization and sounding and all of that is it's a part of it, because of course it's not, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole Cura thing and the ligaments and going up and down is just so fantastic. I think that's like a lot to explore there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we've come to the end of our time, and I'm excited because I had a whole new different direction for our class, and this was fun for me. It was fun for me to explore those ligaments and look at what I had written a couple of years ago, and I'm glad you got excited about it too. So
it's interesting, like I have this anatomy book here, and like they don't have anything, because I'm trying to see like about like a longitudinal ligament, right? But they don't have, it's just like it's not even
brought up.
It's like that's not there. They don't, it's not detailed. Because what we're talking about is something that's very detailed anatomically.
Yeah. You can find it in I don't know if the Netter's book, and also I'm looking over there at my anatomy books. David Gorman, who was very detailed. He was an Alexander teacher. I have his 3 anatomy books that are very special.
Was he the one that drew everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. amazing.
Yeah.
We had some of those drawings in our Fitzmaurice work. Yeah, it's
Oh,
incredible.
that's great. Yeah.
David Gorman.
Yeah, let me get you one copy of one of the three.
He hand drew all of this, all of the anatomy. It's just like you can't even, it's just like
Wow.
this gorgeous um sensibility to the drawings.
Wow.
He was an Alexander teacher, so he was into that world.
Body movable. Oh, beautiful. I like the already the the
The whole
spiral.
thing.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
got this in 19, I think it's 85.
Just need to make a note of this. The body movable. The body.
1985. And so here's some of the drawings.
Wow, 1985.
Let's see if you can see this.
Oh, I mentioned to a friend of mine, Mona Bunzer, and she knows you. She lives in New
Oh.
York, or she lived in New York for a long time.
Really? What's her last name?
Bunzer, Banzer, Mona.
Her name doesn't strike a bell, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't
That
recognize
doesn't
her.
mean,
So,
yeah. But she knew who you were, so.
oh, that's nice. Is she a body mind centering practitioner?
No, she is actually doing Gestalt, and she does, movement performances, I don't know, with or without her husband. That's Charles Dennis.
Her husband's at Schatz Dennis.
Charles Dennis. Yeah.
Charles Dennis is her husband?
Yeah. You know Charles?
Oh, you're kidding. Yes.
Yeah. I actually performed with him when I was living in New York. So
With Charles?
yeah, it was Charles.
I used to live with David Woodbury. And
okay.
David and I toured Europe and the United States together. We were partners choreographing, and we were also lovers, so we were together, lived together.
Oh, beautiful.
So your friend is married to Charles Dennis?
Yes.
Oh my God. He's such a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. I love his.
Guy.
Yeah.
So just, I don't see the ligaments here, but doesn't mean that you've got an idea of the quality that's there. Yeah. That you can see that he's very detailed oriented. If you go up to the foramen magnum, I want to pin myself so it doesn't jump back and forth when we make comments. Let's see. How do I pin this?
Here, let me pin you so I can see that.
Hold on, I pin you. I can pin you.
I'd like to pin me too. There, I can see now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I have an anatomy book like that, and it's in Germany. It's helped me here, but
there's just something that the quality of the image is just so, it's very different when it's like not a,
well, it's not painted. Yeah.
or like a, kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's really interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I love the handwriting over, like the writing too.
Yeah.
It's like just incredible. Yeah.
I don't think I can't read it backwards. Did he mention the ligaments?
I can't, there's no way I can see
we can't see
writing. That would have to be tremendously magnified.
You can see there in the structure, but he drew we had the foramen magnum up here.
I see.
Here oh my.
Is he still alive?
I was just asking myself that question. I worked with him and his wife, Arket Baraya. Arcot Beria. She was a beautiful Alexander teacher.
Mm.
And I had some Alexander lessons with her. This is a spinal column coming up here, vertebral canal. Here's the canal, and this would be the anterior ligament, anterior longitudinal ligament. It's not labeled. And this would be the posterior, if I'm correct, longitudinal ligament.
Okay.
Okay.
So that comes to the back and
Oh,
attaches.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I see.
But it could be that there's this one, it's just not labeled, because remember we talked about the posterior coming up and attaching to the front part of the foramen magnum. This is the front part of the foramen magnum.
Right.
And that would make this one the anterior.
I see.
Which would come up to the ear.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
A ribbon of it would.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Maybe that's it.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Wow.
that comes here. There we go. That's
Yeah, this
It's
was
so
before.
interesting to see how all those structures are interrelated. The sinus, the vocal tract, the windpipe, spine.
And I always tell people these things you can't, those ligaments you can't roll out on a roller. You have to approach them differently. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry those aren't labeled because it's such a nice drawing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go back and look at my book, study it some more.
Well, I have to set up for my client who's coming.
Okay. I was going to ask you how that went last time, and I edited the video so that he was not in it, except for the very beginning part of it. So I was concerned that you brought him forward into the camera, and I was concerned that the family would not have been appreciative to know that he was on the video.
No, I don't think they mind. I didn't think they mind. You could have asked me and I could have asked them, but I don't think they mind at all. Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about, he's clearly has such low tone. Did you spend time with him on his stomach?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he has a shunt in his brain. His mother died during a childbirth, and he got, his definitely a CP from childbirth, from that whole event. And so, yes, he's definitely low tone, and sometimes he's hypertone. The CP children, right, is like all this.
Spasticity, yeah.
Right. And so they have to be on a little bit of meds because of the because of the epileptic seizures, but he's on a very low dose. And yes,
And they keep him off of carbohydrates.
He gets only food through his so he gets like liquid food. He's not, and that's a problem. He doesn't have, and I'm trying to play a lot more. Putting his fingers in his mouth is a problem because his mucus is like, he has so much mucus and it's not moving, because I think, all of this is not moving with food and with talking and all of that.
And he obviously never breastfed, so he didn't get the strengthening of the tongue. Yeah.
He never breastfed, so yeah, I'm trying to work with that. I'm on the belly. You see, the problem is a lot of therapists will put him on the belly, so then he gets hypertone. He just learns to do this, and then there's nothing, So I had to scale back on these things to actually get him somewhere like, that he can modulate tone a little bit better. So head riding is a big thing of trying to get him head riding. And of course, head riding usually comes from being on the belly. But again, it's like, that is his favorite thing to go when he's sitting, like to go like this, and then of course you fall unless, So
So
yeah,
did you do vestibular? Do you put him on the ball and you roll him all around to get the vestibular mechanism to kick in so that he's learning about modulating his tone and his balance?
I work with ball under his chest. So when he's actually there, I have the ball under his chest. So yeah, I can move him easier. And he does like when I take him from side to side, like in sitting, he does like that. We're also trying to figure out, nobody knows if he's really blind or not. They don't know. But sometimes he looks at me and I have the feeling, it's just not connecting. The brain sometimes connects and sometimes
it doesn't. Yeah.
it disconnects again. It's not that his eyes don't function. I think his eyes in itself function, but the brain does connect with it.
Is that what you feel? Can you see, there's infants that I've worked with and I could just, parents will say, well, he's not able to see. And I said, no, your child can see, because I can tell when I look at their eyes if they're seeing or not.
Exactly. That he, sometimes he looks at me and I know exactly he's like looking at me, he's definitely there. And I can see also when, but it's just not like a normal child. When you shine the light, the eyes will do certain things. That's not how he works. And the problem, they go to the doctor and they only have him at a certain moment. And then they say, oh, I don't think he's, but I do think, and the parents are, they also think he has very good therapists. He gets acupuncture, gets a lot of different therapy things. And they do also, they're thinking, I think he still sees. So it's, again, we're working on it. I mean, that's again, the whole head right. The head is.
Whole head right. Like you see, but you have that triangle between the palate, the first cervical vertebrae, and the occiput, and you can throw in the pronephros, but that sucking movement involves that rocking.
Yes.
Go on and on.
Yes.
You got a big job of
bacteria, and he was progressing nicely. I heard before I actually met him, and then he was during COVID. He was in the hospital. He had COVID. There was in the hospital. They put him on a lot of antibiotics. Blah blah blah. Any case, when he came back from that, he had
fallen backwards, deteriorated.
Deteriorated quite a bit, quite a lot. And he hasn't, he was able to ride his head. And then since then, I mean, there's lots to say, but I mean, it's like the gut bacteria, and I make suggestion. I'm going like, do you give them the right gut bacteria supplements? And, so.
There's a particular gut bacteria that is very sensitive to antibiotics. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's called Lactobacillus reuteri.
That's my that one.
Yeah, REU. If you Google that, REUTERI. Let me put it in the chat.
Sarah, thank you so much for taking all this time, but can I just privately, because I have to get off, my client is standing in front of my door.
Yes, so sorry. I put L. reuteri in the chat. That's because antibiotics kill all of that bacteria. They kill the L. reuteri. So that's vacant in most of adults.
Okay. I will definitely get that information to them. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
We'll sign off. Thanks, guys, for staying longer.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful to be with you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Sabrina.
For your patience.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Sabrina.
See you on Monday.
Thank you.
Yes, Bye. Andrew. Bye.